All right, so I'm joined here by Jamie Ostroe. It's great to have you here today, Jamie.
Good to be
Tell
here.
me, tell me a little bit about B2B Reviews.
Yeah, it's great to be here. So B2B Reviews is a software review and recommendation website. We started in June 2022. So we've only been a formed company for about 6 months. And I have my co-founder, Steven. He's located in Utah, Salt Lake City area, and I'm based here in Tulsa. So B2B Reviews is really free tools and resources for small to medium-sized businesses, startup founders, entrepreneurs, really any company that's using tech to scale or run their business. We have the resources and buying guides and reviews for them to consume and use for free.
Wow. And so, where did the idea for it come from?
I love to work. I've kind of it's kind of my hobby, it's my joy, but what I realize what I do like to do, what I like about work is just being really effective and, optimizing systems and setting up things that, really can scale for a company. So, Steve and I have the experience doing that. And when you're looking for software to use at work, that can be a multi-hour or multi-day process for business owners, and especially these small businesses. Like, I'm also a small business owner outside of B2B Reviews. I have a yoga studio, so I know how time-consuming and frustrating researching software can be. And we wanted to create a service that made it just as easy to buy software as it is to order a pizza online, essentially. So taking this multi-hour, multi-day process and turning it into about a 2 to 5 minute reading experience for people.
I mean, it really is interesting, isn't it? Because on the one hand, if you think about what you need to do in order to be able to be successful at anything these days, all of the tools that are out there are available to you, right? So we can buy anything at a moment's notice. We can get information at a moment's notice. Everything is to hand in ways that it never was to hand before. But as that's happened, of course, what's happening at the same time is that we're getting overwhelmed by choice, right?
Mhm.
And so it's almost like a different thing you have to do these days, right? Back in the day, that you weren't choosing between 20 or 30 or 40 different items as you needed to fulfill you know part one of being a business, and you're doing that again and again and again across all of these different areas, and that's what's
Mhm.
taking the time now, is
Yeah.
just this navigating through all of the things that you could be picking, and then
Yeah.
figuring out which one is the best. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like it's fulfilling a market need. How are things going in the
Yeah.
business in general? Are
Yeah.
you getting traction?
Yeah, it's been great. We launched the site in August. Our
Hmm.
traffic grows about 30% month over month every month, and we have about 16
Wow.
partners so far, and it's still growing. So we're publishing new content, new categories every week, every month, and we have not quite 25 categories now, but we have about 3 times as many company reviews as we do buyer's guides. So we're just continuing to fill out our content, and our authority. Being a brand new site takes some time, but it's a long game that we're playing, so we're okay with that.
Yeah, and obviously we'll put the link to B2B reviews up there, but it's pretty simple. It's B number two B reviews.com.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, there's some great content on there, and we'll get into a little bit more of the detail of that later on. But
Great.
um, I'm I'm curious. Obviously, the reason that we're having you on the podcast today is a very specific article that you've got on B2B reviews,
Hmm.
which is this remote work toolkit. Now,
Yeah.
I know that, as you pointed out, much of your content is really aimed at specific, I'd say, technology categories or industry verticals. What led you to decide to research this?
Yeah, well, I was thinking today is Friday the 13th, and I was remembering that it was a Friday the 13th in March in 2020
Uh huh.
when I woke up to an email from my previous employer, and it said, "Don't come into the office until further notice." Then my daughter's daycare started to close. My husband had to quit his job, so I could keep running my team of 15 plus people that was already mostly distributed, but mostly based in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
And the remote work shift was absolutely nuts. So I know from my experience that it took me personally weeks, months to really adapt to that. And I've, from that day, that fateful Friday the 13th in 2020 to now, I've now been working remotely for 3 years. So it's a remote work world that we're living in, and we this is really forcing businesses to adapt, to use technology, to collaborate. They need to use technology to track performance. They need to, have better reporting. They need to ultimately do all these things, use technology so that they can win. And B2B Reviews readers are working remotely, so this does align with our audience. This is a topic our audience is interested in, and it's really, it's a topic my co-founder and I have a lot of experience with. We
Hmm.
came from a remote first company. I mean, they're shifting back to the office in a hybrid schedule now, but our previous employer, it was very remote first company. We have distributed workforce all over the country. So this is just it was a topic that was definitely resonates with our audience. And plus it was fun to collaborate with you on this. We are in a shared office space. We get to kind of bounce ideas off each other. And I would say it's also fun to work on an article where you get to shop online a little bit for your assignment. So
Yeah.
that was fun. But certainly it's definitely a topic that our readers would already be interested in.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you really, I think, put your finger on it there. It's so interesting how this basically massive social experiment began in for the vast majority of people, at least in the U.S. in
Hmm.
in March of 2020, and I actually had forgotten that there was a there was a Friday the 13th in there, but that was a
Yeah.
pretty fateful Friday the 13th for you and many people around the country, and we've heard that a great deal. Obviously, in what we do at BillionMinds involves an enormous number of interviews and one-on-one connections with people that are working remotely. And I think the one thing that we've really figured out is that there is a big, big difference between working from home or working out of the office, which we all have sort of some basic technology capabilities at this point that allow us to do it. In other words, pretty much everybody has an internet connection, right?
Hmm.
And pretty much everybody has a laptop at this point, and some means of being able to do something approximating work out of the office. There's a big difference between that and doing it well.
Hmm.
And I think what you've put your finger on in this article, which I think is great, is that doing it well consists of a bunch of different things, including not just the skills you have, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but then also the things you have, right? And so,
Hmm.
um, for for years, for decades, offices have put a lot of thought into what's the stuff that people need in order to be able to do their job well,
Hmm.
and this is just that reinvented. It's that reinvented
Yeah.
for for this new world. And so I think it's extremely timely. And I love the fact that you've effectively got it all in one place, there, which is great.
Yeah, and our conversation initially just inspired me even further, realizing that it wasn't just about tech or software or office
Hmm.
desks. It was really this. It's just nobody is going to come out on the other side of this remote work world that we're living in, in a positive way without being really intentional about their approach to it and acquiring the skills they need. Like you and Ryan were, talking to me about. It was just like, yes, this is really resonating with me, and it really helped to shape and inform the categories of this toolkit that kind of help to. So I see it as soft skills that you need to identify in,
Hmm.
like, these soft skills are what are helping you know the difference between what's making you win, what's making you lose. You need to look and acquire these soft skills to help you kind of shift from, if you're feeling really sad, like, how can I feel happier? If I'm losing, how can I
Yeah.
win? If I'm failing, how can I succeed? Kind of. So, and really from the product and tech standpoint, it's what are those things that will help enhance this experience, this deeper dive into the kind of the soft skills and the emotion and the control that you can have, and how can we enhance it with the right tools? So,
Yeah. Yeah, that
yeah.
sounds great. So let's get into the specifics of it. So you've got a combination in there of software and physical items. I'm really why don't you just I tell you what, why don't you just go into what the overall categories are, and then we can work our way through it a little bit.
Yeah, we have tech and equipment. So, there's some things that are mixed in with the home office section, but we have
Hmm.
tech and equipment, collaboration tools, home office supplies, snacks and drinks, and then a work from anywhere kind of category. But my thought here was, what are what are kind of those key things that are going to make my working from wherever I'm working experience what it needs to be? Because, if anything, the pandemic taught me that there's no work Jamie and home Jamie. There's just
Uh-huh.
Jamie, and it's, wherever I am, that's who I am. So, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, a sister, an aunt. I'm also a friend and a coworker. So I really needed to make my new environment working remotely at home feel as productive and up to speed with what I was doing in an office setting, because I realized that I needed to kind of make a more of a ceremony out of the shift to
Uh-huh.
working in a new space. Add the things to my house that I needed that I didn't have, get the desk. I was working off of this like antique secretary desk on a metal bar stool for like 3 weeks at the beginning
Uh-huh.
of the pandemic. And I was like, this clearly is not going to be a long term solution. So it was, and I think that, it's just really, I've just had a lot of time to kind of think like these are the essential items. So we also surveyed users on Reddit to get their insight and say
Oh
like,
wow.
what does your work from home toolkit consist of? And we kind of led with what we were already thinking. But so we surveyed some people. We talked to some people who are either working remotely or working in a hybrid environment, and put all these things together. So I just wanted a toolkit that would offer really tangible and actionable advice, plus a list of items that we actually use ourselves. So,
Yeah.
in these, and I don't know if you would want to go through the different sections,
Yeah,
but
we will.
okay, great. Yeah, I was gonna say I can even point out the things that I would say, yeah, I have that. You should get it, and trust me, was a game changer. So it was
Yeah.
fun to throw in stuff we have the experience with.
It's so funny. It's as you're talking about that there, and you're talking about your own experience of like, hey, I gotta get serious about this thing. This is another area which I think is really intriguing, which is as we've shifted from working in the office to working more completely outside of our own homes, it's sort of changing what we as individuals have to care about, right? So, for example, if you just showed up to your office and they said, "Here's your desk, here's your desk lamp," I don't know, here's your, here's the keyboard, here's the mouse,
Hmm.
here's and you walk in the office, you got the stuff you need to do in order to be able to do your job, and kind of away you go. And as I mentioned just a little bit before, right, the companies have been thinking about what those things are for decades.
Hmm.
Now a lot of the time, even if you're working for a larger corporation, you're now like making decisions about those things as an individual. You're
Hmm.
making decisions about those things that you've never really had to make a decision about before. And
Yeah.
what's intriguing is that um, the environment in which you are making those decisions is itself unique, right? So your office space, if you were in a cube, right, your cube was a specific size based on the on job role and all that kind of stuff, and you had a desk of a standard size that would fit in it and all that kind of stuff. If
Hmm.
you're working out of your home, it isn't that, right? And
Yeah.
if you're living in Tulsa, you might have a reasonably sized room you can get it in. If you're living in an apartment out of New York, you probably got nowhere near that. So you have to make
Yeah.
these significant adjustments um, to your home
Yeah.
in order to be able to make it work really well for you. And I think that kind of comes through in the article as well, which I really like. All right, let's go into that first category, which from memory
Yeah.
I think is tech and equipment.
Yeah. It
So
is. Yep.
yeah, talk about that. What's the main kit that you found people need?
Yeah, there is some overlap with what you might see in the home office section as far as
Mhm.
equipment goes, but I focused that section on really the stuff that mixes it's stuff that you can take with you whether you're at home or at the office. So the equipment that you need to really do your work. So wireless keyboard and mouse, a mouse pad and a wrist pad, just getting yourself
Mhm.
set up. Like it's the little things that you would just get kind of for free from the office manager, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, and sometimes it's like there's people who maybe have worked from home for a year now at this point, where they haven't even gotten the proper equipment. So I was like, I would get this mouse pad and this wrist, and it's like, let's put that on the list. And then we also have the headset. This is actually one that, was highly used by the company I worked for previously on the list. So it's really just having the high quality equipment that you need to help you, that you might have, just not had the time to really go through Amazon and pick out one. But
Uh-huh.
um, you really just need things that are going to make it easy to transition from, you know, uh, one office space to another, or just kind of stocking up on your home version of the tools that you were getting at work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, that one. Like the headset, for example. it sounds super straightforward, but I will say that we've encountered people, for example, who worked in an office environment and they never thought about it, but there was something unique about that office environment. The maybe they worked in an office environment whereby their the insulation was really good. They had their own office. They never really heard anybody if the door was shut, so they never even had a headset. They didn't need it. They'd
Yeah.
just be you know speaking through the speaker and not even thinking about it. Then they transition to home, and I don't know, there are dogs or babies or whatever it happens to be, and now all of
Mhm.
a sudden they need one. So
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing as well, which is like something uh, you start to have to think about what has changed about this new environment, and therefore what do you need that is different, or maybe an upgrade
Yeah.
to your existing kit to kind of cope with that new environment.
Yeah. Because there's definitely, there there was people who didn't adapt well at
Yeah,
early on when we have to shift to that, and I think it was because they really needed somebody to tell them exactly what to do and
yeah,
exactly what to get. Like, you need this, you need a keyboard, you need a mouse, you need all those things. So hopefully that my our list makes it real easy for people to just jump in, get the
yeah.
stuff they need to essentials.
Yeah, it's almost like start there and then it's like
Yeah.
add, and then
Yes. Add it all
and
to your cart.
yeah, and then once you've done that, then you can start to think about how you might tweak it a little bit. But it's great
Yeah.
with regard to
Exactly.
that. All right, then
Yeah.
you headed into collaboration tools, and I noticed you put us, the Billy Minds, in that category. So, what was your rationale behind putting us into that category?
Yeah, well, after talking with you and Ryan, because really it was our initial conversation was, hey guys, I'm making a remote work toolkit. This is something that my readers would be interested in, but you guys live and breathe the topic. So just tell
Mhm,
me, like, what are you guys doing? What's the kind of the aha stuff behind what you do? And it really, after talking with you and Ryan about remote work, I was really inspired by your mission to help employees develop these remote work skills. It's
mhm,
really not something I had heard somebody go into such depth about before, even though I've been immersed in the remote work world against my will really for the last 3
mhm,
years. So I was like, okay, yeah, these are the key skills. These are the areas that really help somebody do remote work well. So it's honestly, after learning about Billion Minds, it's something I wish my team would have had back in
mhm,
the day. Zoom and email are not everything. It's really hard to create culture over the airwaves. So having something that we could have done together. My team, I made my team have 2 stand-ups a day at one point. I was a little overkill back looking back, but this would have been a great little like, hey, we're all meeting up every 10 minutes every day or for 10 minutes every day. Let's do the exercises. Let's build these skills together. There are skills I needed, but I think what's also cool about Billion Minds is really that not only does it teach and embed the skills that the culture of your team really needs to thrive in a remote work world, it serves as a collaboration tool. So
mhm.
I love using tech for work. I love using software that's fun and intuitive and frictionless digital experience. But I love that Billion Minds actually ends up serving as a collaboration tool for teams. So it was just kind of hit all the marks as far as being part of a toolkit for remote teams. And yeah, I wish I would have had it as a manager. I needed it back when my team was much bigger.
Yeah, it's so interesting actually that you should mention it that way because I mean, obviously we think of ourselves as a skills development thing, but we've heard a couple of things that have really surprised us. One is the exact point that you made there around like, okay, well, it's not just individuals that need to be able to create these skills, right? We need to create these skills as individuals, sure, but we need to also create these skills as a team. How you collaborate in a remote work environment is different to how you collaborate in an in-person environment. Specifically, you tend to get a lot more collaboration that's happening asynchronously versus synchronously. And so, what are the skills that you need to be able to do that? And those aren't just individual; they are team level skills. So, in that sense, that was I'd say not exceptionally surprising for us, but it started to happen. Certainly inside smaller organizations, they start to think of it almost as a collaboration tool. And then the second piece of it, which was very surprising for us, is how um, for certain small teams that they wound up using shared collaborative spaces inside Billion Minds for their day-to-day activities. We fully anticipated people would do that, as they were kind of separating work from their life, and that they were
Yeah.
collaborating with their spouses or their friends or whatever. But what we didn't expect was it to start to become like a sort of core tool that people used for collaboration in teams and in smaller businesses and things like that. So it was really neat that you spotted that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
Um, all right, so let's go into the home office setup. So you mentioned there's a little bit of
Yes.
overlap between that and the tech and equipment, but talk through what's in there and why it's in there.
Yeah, the biggest difference to me kind of in this home office section of the toolkit is that I really, for myself especially, I'm trying to mimic that tech company startup environment in my
Hmm.
home.
Hmm.
That's the one big thing I noticed becoming a remote company when initially, I've been in person every day with my teams, here in Tulsa. And I was like, man, one thing that kind of unified all of us was being able to be in this beautiful office space. It really
Yeah.
inspired you. It made you feel like you were working for something that was bigger than you and exciting and new. So anything that we could, I could bring into my house that made that work from home experience feel like I was still at a startup or a tech company. So, this we know that from an ergonomic standpoint, standing desks are better. So,
Hmm.
you know, find a good price for a standing desk on Amazon. Like that doesn't take too terribly long, but I went ahead and did that. It's like I would buy this standing desk. Like we know they're better. Reddit, or one of our Reddit users commented and said an essential oils diffuser, and I said,
Hmm.
say less. I am all about essential oils, so I will definitely put one of those on the list.
Yeah.
Um, and little things like the chair on the list. Steven owns that chair. I just bought the chair and it's in my office now. Kind of an ergonomic armrest less
Hmm.
uh, chair. What else is in there? The HP display is just having a second screen. It's like maybe your company provides this screen that you get to use when you're in office some days, but if you need a second display, that was something that for 3 years I didn't have because I just didn't want to go and figure out which one to get. But now,
Yeah.
it's like, get this one. Same thing with the printer. Steven has that one and he would tell you all day. He's like, laser jets are better than ink jets because they won't dry out. And it's just like
Yeah.
we had a lot of opinions about this home office equipment that we really felt like, yeah, they need this, they need that. So
Yeah.
speaking from experience for sure on that section.
It's really interesting. One thing I'd add in there, Jamie, which we're seeing increasingly with BillionMinds users, this challenge between creating enough separation between work and the rest of your life, right? So we know
Yeah.
that one of the potential downsides, particularly if you're working from home versus working, say, in coffee shops and things like that, is creating that separation. So you wind up
Yeah.
where work and the rest of your life start to merge together. And then that can cause motivation challenges and burnout and things like that. We often
Hmm.
have people that speak to us, talk to us about the idea of you know they never get excited to go to work because they never leave it, or they go from a phrase that we hear quite often is I've gone from uh, working from home to living at work, or at least it feels like that.
Mm, yeah.
So what's really cool about, if you like, I want to say almost like the professionalness of the home office setup that you've got there.
Hmm.
Part of the goal of that for many people is should be to create a physical space that, yes,
Yeah.
it's within your home, but it feels like it's for work and you go to
Right.
it,
That's, yep.
right? So we
Yes.
have we even
Hmm.
have people who've like created, and actually I did this in my previous home, where they've created like a shed or something like that, which is like their
Hmm.
their office, and they walk to work, right? So they
Yeah.
go out of the back door, or they walk to work, and they're in this separate space. But what you're creating is like a version of that. And one thing I would add is that if you do that, that is your physical space helping you create that separation, that transition between work and non-work. As
Yeah.
much as you can, if you do that, that's your space, that's your place for work and just for work. So
Yes. Yeah.
don't hang out there and watch, don't hang out in that same space and watch Netflix, right? Don't
Yeah.
hang out in that
Exactly.
same space and do other stuff. If you're going to
Hmm.
do other stuff that is not related to work, leave that space and go somewhere else. And then once people do that,
Yeah.
that can really help with a transition between one environment and the other. And
Yeah.
so your kit, your setup, I think really does help with that. All right, let's
Yeah.
move on to
Well,
let's move on to the category that I loved, and it
yeah.
sounds so freaking simple,
Yeah.
but snacks and drinks. So
Yeah.
so tell me about
Well,
that.
yeah. Well, I think too, what I had in mind was, from my experience, for the companies that maybe have a distributed workforce. They have some in office or
Mhm.
some, not in the office. I really, that's one thing I missed about my previous employer was the snacks in
Uh-huh.
the office. So just kind of creating just mindfully and having fun with it to create the environment you want. You need a break room, you need snacks, you need nourishment. LaCroix is a favorite on B2B Reviews team, just as an option for a non-caffeinated version of to get you through the day. We drink a lot of that. We had a lot of that at our old company as well. So it's just kind of a little shout out to that. But really, and nuts and those Wella bars. That was a really hard thing to find a way to purchase those online very easily. But I mean, there's like the things that you learn working in the world of tech are really what are the best snacks. Like
Yeah.
that's because it's like I didn't know they had grass fed beef jerky, but here we are, and now I'm addicted to it. So those are our if we had to cut it off at some point. So those are the snacks that made the list, but that was a fun section to do.
Yeah,
Oh, and the
go
and
ahead.
I would say I could not make a cup of coffee to save my life during the pandemic. So the splurge on that list is the Nespresso machine that literally a pod and press one button. That was a game changer. So
Uh,
you need that.
absolutely. Because it's less important about whether people like LaCroix or whether they like something
Yeah.
else. What the
Yeah.
point is that what you've done is you've looked at it almost from the perspective of mentally I associate these things with work, right?
Yeah.
And so those things are now part of your environment. So we've even seen this with other things that are related to it. I did a remote work tip recently, and where we talk about music, and specifically we talk about whether you should play music or whether you should not play music in order to be able to help you focus. And that's a very, very, it turns out it's a very individual topic. And there are certain pieces of areas of where neurodiversity fits into this and so on, whereby in some cases music can really, really, really help you focus. But one of the other things that we found out, which is really interesting, is that you might have like a piece of music that is in your past and it tended to be on when you were getting a ton of stuff done. And if you play that
Mhm.
same piece of music, pretty much guarantee that you'll be working away like crazy just because your brain is hearing that piece of music that I don't know, maybe you
Yeah.
were doing your finals at college or something like that and it was playing in the
Yeah.
background and now you're back in that mode and just like writing, writing,
Yeah.
writing or whatever it happens to be. The snacks are like that,
Mhm.
right? So in other words,
Mhm.
if you're in your brain, this drink or this snack is associated with getting stuff done, that
Yeah.
drink and that snack, specifically that drink and that snack can really help. So you kind of
Yeah.
like key in on that, just a tiny thing, but with actually a
Yeah.
ton of meaning in our remote work scenarios.
Yeah. You need it's the just even the ritual of having that
Yeah,
first cup of coffee. And if your ritual involved the coffee that you got at your office and your life is lacking, it's just again like it's one of those things where you just have to stop and ask yourself like, why is my morning not as enjoyable as it used to be? And especially for those who really want to embrace the digital nomad lifestyle or go 100% remote work and never go to an office again, you have to create the environment that you'll thrive in. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We know that having, well stocked fridges and, morning routine and all the things, the equipment you need in hand is part of that. So it's good to force yourself into being responsible now for these new things like keeping the LaCroix stocked in the fridge.
absolutely. All right, and then I think we're now down to the final category. I think so.
Yeah.
Work from anywhere. So
Yeah.
um, okay, let's get into this because this is actually something that comes up, I would say, a lot. And it's actually one of the questions whereby the people ask us the most about, which is like, okay, I'm getting how like working out of the office is different to working in the office. But is working
Hmm.
from home different from work from anywhere? If it is, how? Because a lot of times people use those terms very interchangeably. But you've got specific kit for work from anywhere versus work from home. So why do you
Yeah.
think we need different or additional kit for a work from anywhere scenario?
My perspective on it is, even for people that are going back to the office or are in some type of hybrid, you know, schedule, we'll continue to work remotely because of the fact that
Mhm.
our colleagues are in other states. So I kind of view
Oh, I
working
see. So almost
remotely,
like
you know what I mean?
distributed. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, at any given point, even if I'm in the office, which, the incubator that I work out of is not technically the entire company's headquarters because my coworkers in Salt Lake City, but that's the office for me. But I'm still working remotely with my with Steven because we have to do
Mhm.
everything over Zoom. So it's really just like, okay, well, this is the world we live in. Even if I go to an office or if I'm at home or if I'm traveling or if I really want to be the digital nomad that I dream of being, you need to have equipment that's going to help you keep the weight light on that you're transporting back and forth. You really want to have a good ergonomic productive setup no matter where you work from. So the things that I included in the work from anywhere playlist are actually, there's a Spotify study playlist, there's an Apple Music study playlist, there's the collapsible easily transported laptop stand, right? So it's kind of
Mhm.
like I can make my my setup at this coffee shop just as comfortable and productive as my setup sitting at my desk. So, and that's really the future because again, like even if you are working from an office 5 days a week, you have times where you're going to go off campus to go
Yeah.
work from a coffee shop or, a cafe or something. So, that's it's like if you're not getting into these products that make that easier, like the Remarkable tablet, which is,
Yeah.
eliminating the need to carry around paper all the time, or the Brompton bike that can get you from one place to another. It's like these are just new, cool products that are available to us that a lot of people don't know about. And this is, we're going to continue to need to be flexible and agile. And, if we can be as productive from anywhere as an employee as we are from the office, then our bosses and our colleagues have that trust in us. We can really truly live the life we want, have the schedule that we want, because we can be productive from anywhere, and that's the goal
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, wow, you really touched on it there. I think it's terrific. I mean, in a sense, if I can summarize what you're saying, in a sense, you're saying if you work in a distributed team, you are remote. You're remote from those other people. It doesn't matter whether you're
Hmm.
showing up to the office or not, right? And so that's really intriguing because a lot of organizations think about hybrid as being a very unique thing. In
Hmm.
reality, hybrid implies some people in the office, some people out of the office. And in the office or out of the office is could be a statement about you as a person. In other words, you're 100% in the office or 100% out. Or it could just be a statement of time, right? So, as in,
Hmm.
you're in the office today, but this afternoon you're not, or this evening you're
Right.
not. That's pretty much
Hmm.
once you broaden it in that way, because we all go home, right? And some of us do some work when we're at home. In that sense, we're all remote. And in a sense where almost all of us are working with people that are not in the same space as us, we're all remote. So I'm kind
Hmm.
of like picking up what you're saying there, and in a sense, what you're saying is we're all remote now.
Yeah.
And so then the question is, given that we're all remote, what is it that we need in order to be able to do great work from anywhere? And that could be the office this morning, and it could be a lunchtime meeting,
Hmm.
and it could be, oh, man, I'm at my kid's ball game, but I got to get this thing done.
Hmm.
Those kind of things. That is pretty much universal, and
Yeah.
people need that stuff to be able to help them do it well. So I think there's something really really intriguing behind that as well.
Yeah. The goal is to love working from anywhere and to do it really well. That's what even B2B reviews is about. It's like do the work you
No,
do really well, no matter where you are,
well,
no matter
gosh,
what your office
yeah.
looks
I mean,
like
that's
or your,
kind of
schedule.
but it's so important, Jamie. I mean, that
Mhm.
like sometimes we have to do work when maybe times when we didn't intend to or didn't want to, or from places we didn't
Mhm.
intend to or didn't want to. So if we can create this kind of toolkit, like toolkit you're talking about, that's just going to make it a little bit easier for just about everybody, regardless of whether their official title is that they're a remote worker or something like that. Anyway,
Right.
I know that coming into this wasn't as you mentioned, you had some personal experience with this, but it wasn't like a core area of expertise for you. um, as you got into researching this area, obviously you spoke to us, you spoke to the Reddit community, you spoke to a whole bunch of people that were working out of an office. What would you say were kind of like your main like aha moments, and what were some of the main learnings you got? What really surprised you?
And I'm really coming away from the research with the realization that the way we work is dramatically different than it was, March 12th, 2020. It was
Hmm.
very different then than it is, in the middle and the kind of the heart of the pandemic. It's different than it was, even a year ago. So the way we're working
Yeah.
is very different, and many of us didn't adapt well to it then. And there's a lot of people still who haven't really adapted to it 3 years later. So it's time, and it really kind of brought it to the forefront for me, hearing your perspective on all of it and really understanding more of like what makes working remotely work. So I was happy for that.
Yeah.
And I would say, the principles that Billion Minds is teaching and the skills around, maintaining organization, control, motivation, balance, resilience, those are all things that really resonated with me through this research. I was like, yeah, those
Mhm.
are the things that I want to hone in on. Those are the things that, once I build a team back up to the size that I had 6 months ago, um, those are the things that I will help shape and look forward to help build a remote team that's really going to be successful. So I think it's really smart, that Billion Minds is bringing these things to companies. It's the right time for it. It's just giving employees these skills, these capabilities that really help them, and it helps them like prove it to their colleagues, to their bosses that you know they're doing it right through these certification that programs that you're offering. So
Mhm.
I just think it's really neat, and I think the world needs to continue to get better at remote work, and now's the time. So
Awesome.
yeah,
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate it. As a reminder, it's B2B Reviews. There's the Remote Work Toolkit on
yep,
there. We'll actually put a link directly to the Remote Work Toolkit in our show notes. So if you're listening to this, and just take a look at the show notes, and you'll be able to see a link directly to it,
yeah,
with all of the things that Jamie has mentioned there. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today, Jamie,
awesome.
and very best of luck with B2B Reviews, and of course with the remote work journey for you and all of your employees.
Yes, thanks, Paul. It was really a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.